Evening, folks. Brian here, Geomagnetic Earthwatch, Sunday, January 29, 2023 on our planet. Hope you're all well. Please find a comfortable place to sit down. I'm not sure how long this video is going to be. So I've spent the weekend, actually much longer than that, going through various interviews of Mr. John Moore. I posted a link to one of a series of interviews of Mr. Moore. Mr. John Moore is highly educated in the field of Earth's next catastrophe cycle, the pole shift, and the incoming Planet X. Mr. John Moore is a military insider, as well as speaker. He's also known by his website, The Liberty Man. He's a former U.S. intelligence officer, analyst, former U.S. military psychological warfare, Green Beret Special Forces, as well as intelligence in the Middle East. Following his military career, he became a homicide detective. Now, 95% of what I'm going to say is credit to John Moore. I'm doing a more condensed version of all his interviews about the government's plans and concealment of Planet X, or Wormwood, if you will. Now, in the 1900s, astronomers theorized a secondary planetary system approaching ours, or at least a very large planetary body altering the planets, causing a perturbation, which is a deviation of our solar system from its normal path caused by an outside influence, an outside gravitational and magnetic influence. And they figure this happens every 3,600 years. I've heard the figure of 3,657 years. The last time being 3,656 years ago. Now the rest are all confidential reports subsequently made public. And you can find this information on the internet. In 1979, the United States government went looking for Planet X using Pioneer 10 space probe. And they found it, and they began tracking it. That was the purpose of Pioneer 10 space probe. Now, in July 29, 2005, NASA announced the finding of the 10th planet they called Xena, which comes into our solar system every 3,600 years. You can Google it, look it up yourself. July 29, 2005, NASA announcement. Of course, unless they've pulled that from the web. In 2006, John Moore wrote and published a paper called No Need for Panic. In his paper, he wrote that the government will want the people to stay at home. And in his paper, he wrote, what better way to do it than to have a virus forcing people wanting to stay at home? Again, this was in 2006. Listen carefully. The 10th planet approaches from the south of planet Earth. It can only be seen from the south. Antarctica. Remember what I just said, because I'm going to be getting into something. Lockdowns. The Corona connection. Now, John Moore interview in 1983 gives a reference to Dr. Robert Harrington, supervisor astronomer for the U.S. Naval Observatory, who gives the size, density, and orbit of planet X. Now, obviously, the government has to keep us dumbed down, not in the knowledge. They want us to carry on our lives as normal, which they've managed to do. However, with a couple of tests along the way. So the government cannot handle mass panic or a shutdown of the economy. They have to keep the economy going. They need their sources of money to complete their bunkers. I've said this before quite a few times, including in my introduction video. Now, an economic collapse leading to social disorder. But if there's already a lockdown in place, it would make it easier for the government to impose martial law. If everybody's already contained, it would be impossible for the government to impose martial law if there's mass panic in the streets and attacking government institutions and just the food hoarding and everything. Why didn't you tell us? There's no way the government can handle that unless you already have people locked down in place. And the last one, people, was a test run, a trial run on your psyche to see how easy it will be to get your compliance. In my point of view, it's pretty damn easy. Unless you're a grumpy Canadian, you're going to lock me down. Anyway, voluntary compliance is easier for the government to control the population. The next lockdown, Mr. John Moore states, is going to be a permanent lockdown. Or maybe these 15-minute cities. Now, remember Mr. Moore stated in his paper in 2006, what better way to get people to stay at home than a virus? He stated this in his book in 2006. Now, I'm going to jump ahead a bit. This is the 2025 timeline I've been speaking of for quite some time now. It's not 2030, it's not 2050. It's not 2030s, 2040s, Ben Davidson's nonsense. It's 2025, folks. Please pay attention. Mr. Bill Gates stated that by 2025, there will be the next pandemic and it will be far worse than the last pandemic. Correction. It'll be the next plandemic and it'll be far worse than the last plandemic. The last plandemic, which was actually planned through Event 201 2 months before came out, was just that. It was a plan. Orchestrated. Trial run, a test for the next one by 2025, as he states. Next, World Economic Forum states, by 2025, there will be a massive cyber attack, probably on the global grid system. You got to do a lot of thinking, man, to see how this falls into place to keep everybody in the dark, literally. Keep everybody in the dark. One thing he did not state, but I'm stating, snip your communication. You can't talk to anybody. You can't find out what's going on. But you're already locked down, folks. Third, the Deagle Report. By 2025, 2/3 of the population in the United States will be dead. The Deagle organization reports to the United States government and the United States military. How credible their information is, I don't know, but as Mr. John Moore states, it's not a prediction. It's a statement of what will be happening. 2025, Brian Gunderson. 2025, Bill Gates. 2025, Klaus Schwab. 2025, Deagle Report. Now, a moment, please. I can't remember all this stuff. I have to write some of it down. Again, the Deagle Group is a quiet think tank who reports to the Fortune 500 and the United States government and its military. Now let's get back to the Antarctica. I'm finding out some very interesting information. You can all verify it on the internet. Mr. John Moore reports that the world leaders met secretly at the Antarctica, the only place where you can see Planet X, perhaps through some observatory. These world leaders were, but probably not limited to, but I confirmed it on the internet, they were then Senator John Kerry, November 11, 2016. At the same time, the CIA director, James Clapper, went to Australia. Pope Francis sent Patriarch Kirill, K-I-R-I-L-L, to the Antarctic for an urgent meeting. Putin also attended, virtually. President Obama made a secret trip to the Antarctica. After Patriarch Kirill's attendance. All within a short time frame. Don't take my word for it. Get on the internet, do your homework tonight. Confirm it for yourself. And again, the Antarctica, the south part of our planet, is the only point where you can see Planet X coming from. This is why I've been stating ever since I found out all this stuff. 2025 is the magical timeline, people. Now, as Mr. John Moore states, the timelines, the publicly stated timelines for such things, that we must cut carbon emissions completely by 2050. We must do this by 2030. That is a distraction timeline to make you think, well, okay, we have another 27 years before we have to be zero emissions. It's all part of the plan. It's a timeline to mislead you. Keep your mind off track from 2025. Now, some of the signs that Mr. John Moore gets into prior to the arrival of Planet X. Now, you can call it what you want. I call it wormwood because, again, these timelines are all matching up. And if NASA has a public statement on that date, and they gave a name to that planet. So some of the things to watch out for. Oceans will become violent, massive tidal waves, taking out our seaports. We need our seaports for the movement of all our goods. Massive tidal waves. We are slowly already having changes in our ocean waters. I read a report earlier this week, maybe last week, about these sudden large waves are appearing. I can't remember the location. We're at the beginning of those times. There will be abrupt changes, bizarre weather, earthquakes that people will be talking about. changes that's going to be getting people's attentions, but the government will be using the CO2 man-made global warming scam. The Al Gore deception. Okay. It's all part of the plan, folks. A lot of people think Al Gore is a stupid idiot and all the funny memes, even me. He's all part of the plan. The deception plan. People think he's an idiot, but you know who the idiots are? The idiots who think he's an idiot. Including me, not anymore. The Al Gore deception. John Moore did state that the Gulf Stream, this is the only thing I question, I don't know about it. Some of you people are smarter than me. Steve Smith, for example. The Gulf Stream regulates the jet streams, but that the Gulf Stream stopped on June 12, 2010. Like I said, I spent a hell of a lot of hours the past few days going through all his interviews. I ain't finished yet. This is going to be the first of probably several videos, which I'm probably going to carry on Rumble because someone's going to shut me down again. Now, I'm going to add on my 5% worth. Before the Big Daddy comes in, Planet X, he's going to have his old little buddies going ahead of him. All these other asteroids that are coming by, including the one that just skimmed by Earth. I think we can expect more close encounters of the smaller bodies, such as the Trojans, which apparently, according to James of the Earth Changes channel, between the United States and China, they managed to intercept and break apart. Anyway, folks, 2025 is what I've been saying all along. They want to get Agenda 2030 done way before 2030. And when the elites are openly saying to program your psyche, there will be another pandemic and it'll be within the next 2 years by 2025, and it's going to be a lot worse than the last one. And like I said, the last one was only a trial run. And then there's this. This was developed first, clearly. Then they had to have a reason to use this, and the reason was C-19. What are they doing again, people? The variant, which by now 99% of the entire population of China has, and they're letting them go travel all over the world to see their relatives for Chinese New Year. Doing it again, people. Allowing the spread of so they can keep on doing this. If you want to get serious about preparing, I suggest you follow people like Mr. John Moore who have some credentials. Anyone else who has absolutely no credentials whatsoever, consider that his timeline may also be a deception. Because he openly stated there is no 10th planet. He contradicts Revelation. He's an oxymoron. And I have many examples of how he contradicts himself and the information he gives you. He's a speed reader. So what? My daughter was speed reading books at grade 1. My daughter's intellect, autistic, it's the same as his, but maybe superior. I find highly suspicious. I'll get into that later. As I think about it, I think maybe he's just all part of the deception, all part of the plan. To make you think that we have until the late 2030s or 2040s. Watch for the signs now. Watch what the elite are doing. Watch and be prepared for the next series of lockdowns. Maybe climate lockdowns before the next pandemic lockdown by Bill Gates. And get your shit together, get your head together. Maybe put a little bit more time into considering all this and do your own research, do your own study. That's all.